Hello there, thank you for clicking on this video. This is one of my most requested at the minute. People keep messaging me and asking me to compare my ReSaurus figures with the new NECA figures. Guess if they're wondering which one they want to spend money on. So I'm going to compare them today. If you've seen any other YouTube reviews of the Crash Bandicoot NECA figures, you've probably seen some quite positive reviews, you know. They're hyperposable, they're very, very detailed, and a lot of collectors are really excited because it's the first Crash Bandicoot figure that they've ever got their hands on, and they think he looks wonderful on their shelf. And yeah, I agree with them. The figures are really beautiful and they're hyperposable, which makes them probably some of the most interesting Crash Bandicoot merchandise we've ever got, at least the most advanced. But obviously, as a collector of many Crash Bandicoot figures and a lot of different Crash Bandicoot merchandise, I am also quite cynical about them, and I will explain why throughout this video. So obviously, as the NECA Jetboard Crash came out with its Jetboard, I thought it was only right to compare it with the ReSaurus Jetboard Crash. I mean, it completely makes sense. But seeing as we also got this solo figure a little earlier, I thought I'd include him as well. There are a few things I can say about him, but I'm not going to go into too much detail on this figure, specifically because they are pretty much the same figure with different faces. So most good reviews start with looking at the box, how the figures came packaged, how they're presented, and how they'll be stored. But just keep in mind that this ReSaurus one is actually about 20 years old, so yeah, there's a lot of damage to it. And Crash is loose. Obviously, I've opened all of these figures because I've had a look at them and I know what I want to say about them. So that, remember that they all would have been tied in with one of these twisty ties, but now they're loose. So they do wiggle a bit, but that wouldn't have been the case normally. So the issue I have with the ReSaurus figures is, well, obviously they were made as toys, as figures, so no one really expected them to be valuable collectibles in the future. So the box isn't very, how would you say, kind of collector friendly. So in order to get to the figure, you essentially have to destroy the box. So you have to rip the box open and pull it off the card to get in and get your figure out, which is a shame. And yeah, so if you unbox these, they're kind of ruined forever. Whereas the other Crash comes in this nice kind of resealable box, really. So, you know, you open the top up and you can pull him out, and you don't have to damage any of the box whatsoever. So you can take the figure out, display him, and then put him back in the box, and he'll pretty much still be in mint condition. Whereas the ReSaurus figure, if you open it, you've destroyed the box. So I think the point goes to the NECA figure. So if you look on the back of the boxes here, now this is one of the things where I'm going to be kind of cynical, and one of the things that really annoys me about this figure series, because it has so much potential. These NECA figures, they're so detailed, and with the technology that we have now, you know, we can make all kinds of amazing action figures that they couldn't have made really in the 90s. So with all this possibility, we've only got 3 other figures, and they're all Crash. So it's like, collect them all. Have 4 Crashes on your shelf. Now, of course I love Crash, and I love his different costumes, and I bought all of the variant Crashes in the ReSaurus line. But the thing is, it doesn't make me want to collect them all if I can only get one character. I want to collect all the other characters. Like on the ReSaurus one, you've got Cortex, Tiny, Komodomo, Engine, Dingadal, Entropy, Coco, you've got everyone. So I'm hoping that with this, they're hoping that if these figures sell, it shows people are interested in Crash Bandicoot figures, and then maybe they'll think about putting money into actually sculpting and producing the other characters like Cortex, Engine, you know, all those guys. Because I love Crash, but having loads of Crashes doesn't make me want to collect them. It doesn't really inspire me to collect all of the figures. There's not a lot you can do with just Crash on his own. So one of the main things that attracts me to collecting all of the ReSaurus figures is that I could get all the characters, you know, think of all the little dioramas or animations or little scenarios I could create. And obviously when you're a kid, you want all the characters so you can play with them. So I think that's the difference between the demographics here is this was made for kids, so we've got a lot of stuff in here, we've got a lot of little bits, we've got a lot of characters that they can play with, and then this one was made kind of for the collector's market, for figure collectors who want like a hyper-detailed, hyper-posable figure of Crash, and so they can kind of get away with just producing 4 different types of Crash, and they're going to probably be collected anyway. But I hope and pray that if this goes well, they'll announce a second series where they'll have like Cortex Engine, Coco, you know, and all of those. So there's actually variety, and it kind of makes you want to collect them. So I was kind of annoyed when I saw the box for the NECA figure, because I knew that they would be making these for the collector's market, and I thought, great, they've made another non-collector friendly box. But actually, I didn't realise that the whole thing is actually plastic, so if you take a Stanley knife, you can cut here, nobody will really notice, and then you can open up the box from the back, and you can preserve everything inside. It's also nice, this little homage that they made here, so you can kind of see how these are kind of similar. I mean, I know they have these on a lot of figures, but I feel like this was was a homage to this kind of box, and that's why they did it in this style. But one of the main things you may notice is that this one has a lot more in it. It's got Crash, a Jetboard, it's got a plastic crate, it's got Aku Aku, it does have a crystal down here that you can't see at the minute, and it has a Wumpa Fruit. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 accessories, compared to no accessories. So if you look inside the box, it's really empty, but it does say it includes a crate replica. Great! But where is it? So if you open it up, come to the back, and you pull the back piece out, you'll find that there's kind of something in there. And out of the bottom it comes. It's a paper crate. So this crate is made of stock card, and it's the most disappointing thing ever, because if you look at the actual if you look at the toy shows where they were showing these, where they were showing the prototypes, they had plastic crates. And then when we see online, you know, Crash figure comes with replica crate, I thought, great, we'll be getting a plastic crate like ReSaurus did 20 years ago. But no, we get this cardboard, terrible crate. I don't even want to put it together. It's so disappointing. And there you have it. This boring, disappointing, horrible crate. It's really disappointing. It's not even photorealistic, you know. It's just completely smooth. There's no texture to this. It's just a cartoon drawing of a box that you fold and that doesn't even, lay flat. To me, that's not a replica. It's literally just a printout. I can go online and print out hundreds of these crates and fold them together myself. It's just kind of pointless. So that's really disappointing. And if you actually kind of look at the size of the box compared to Crash, it's ridiculously huge. It's not even to scale with Crash in the game. So, and the thing is, people may in the future want to collect these again, and this figure will be loose, and people will be able to pick them up. But these are just going to get destroyed unless you unfold it and slide it back in here and keep it safe forever. These crates they're going to get ruined. So, it's a shame. So here's a comparison between the Crash figures and the crates that they come with. Now, I thought the ReSaurus crates were annoying because they have these stickers that you have to stick onto the crates, and they're not very sticky and they kind of just peel off. And I would have preferred if ReSaurus made Nitros, TNTs, and crates with different symbols that kind of came with different characters. But anyway, that beats this 100 times. A cartoon drawn printed box that I had to fold myself that is so ridiculously huge compared to the actual figure. The ReSaurus crate, on the other hand, is fully sculpted out. It's got great paintwork that makes it look really realistic. It's got highlights, dark areas. It looks like wood. It's really, really nicely done. The crates are lovely. And you may think to yourself, well, this is good because, if you're traveling or going away, you can just fold it down and then you'll have a Crash crate with you. I don't know why you'd ever want to do that. But the ReSaurus figures had already thought of that because this whole crate folds out as well. So you can completely flatten the whole thing and then fold it back up again. I don't know why ReSaurus did this either, but, I guess it's because the crates open up when you get a checkpoint. And there's what I mean about the stickers that don't actually stick to anything. So not only did the Crash figure actually come with a plastic crate that's of good scale and of good detail, but he also came with other accessories that weren't cardboard cutouts, such as an Aku Aku mask. This is when you get the 3 Aku Akus and you become invincible. He had a crystal. So obviously this one's not canon in the game, but like I said in the other reviews, This is just to make the figures more collectible. And he even came with a Wumpa Fruit, which is the main thing that Crash collects throughout the game. So this figure from the 90s came with Crash and 4 great accessories, if I exclude the Jetboard for now. Whereas this one from 2018 came with just himself and a terrible cardboard crate. Now you may be thinking that's not fair to say, because this was one of the cheaper figures that just sort of came as Crash on his own, and it was kind of like testing the market. So yeah, fair enough, you can say that. But if we turn our attention to the deluxe Jetboard figure, we find that he is also lacking of these accessories. So if we compare the ReSaurus Jetboard figure with the NECA Jetboard figure, this is kind of the accessories that they come with. So he comes with the board base and the engine, and the ReSaurus figure comes with a Jetboard, which is one piece, the crate, a Wumpa Fruit, and a crystal. So as you can see, this one comes with a lot more to offer than this one. It's just Crash and a Jetboard on his own. So I will actually do a full review of the Jetboard Crash on his own and talk about everything, you know, to do with the details and what I think of the paint and everything. But for this is just a comparison between the two figures. So I'm not going to go into too much detail, but yeah, you can probably guess what I'm going to say. I think ReSaurus did it better. And it's not because they have more detail or better paintwork or anything like that. It's just functionality and the scale, really, that is my gripe here. So, as you can see, there's a peg here. ReSaurus Crash has a peg on his foot. You put him on there, and he's on his board, and he's ready to go. And you know what? It looks exactly like the board in the game. Maybe the paint, the flames are a little bit off, but it kind of sits how it does in the game, and it stands a little bit higher off the floor, so that you can kind of imagine, you know, if there were waves going underneath it, because it's got this fin like the Jetboard does, because it is a surfboard with a jet engine on the back, and then the stabilizers on the side are at an angle so that they're almost like a stand, so that he comes off of the floor a little bit more, and it feels like, you know, if you put, I don't know, a decal of some water or, you know, like a blue towel, whatever underneath him, it would look like he was like gliding across the water. So that looks really nice, and it has life to it, and the scale is right for one thing. You know, this is about the size that the board is in the game, but this has pretty much got it right. That's pretty much what you see in the game. And then when you get to the NECA Crash, obviously the board, you know, it's got this huge engine. It's so much more detailed, so much more paintwork. A lot more thought went into it, because the ReSaurus one is pretty much just black with some hints of silver. So, you know, they captured the look from the game really well. So it comes as 2 pieces, obviously, because it's huge. And you take those 2 pins and you plug them into the base just here. But that's actually it for the board. Then it just sort of lays there, flush, flat against the ground. Crash has 2 pegs on his feet, just like the ReSaurus one did, but there are no pegs on the board, so you just kind of got to balance him on this shiny, slippery piece of plastic. So there you go. And if you have been paying attention to anything I've been saying about the prior accessories, the board is huge. It's ridiculously huge. In fact, the board is way bigger than it is in the game. If you look at the game and you look at the size of Crash compared to the board, this is just way too much. It's huge compared to Crash here. Especially the engine. I think the engine is the main thing that's huge. Whereas the ReSaurus one looks a bit tidier. It looks more like the scale of the video game. One of the issues with this is that because the ReSaurus Crash has this peg, he has his feet looking like he's kind of balancing on the board. Obviously there's a flat-footed version of this, but you still pretty much get the same effect where, you know, it looks like he's balancing on the board, and you can put him in where you can only really move his arms up and down, but, you know, it looks like he's kind of trying to balance there. Whereas this figure's like hyper-posable. You can put his arms in all kind of positions, so obviously, you know, they take the point on that, because this is a hyper-articulated figure, but I'm not going to get into that in this comparison. So you can kind of make it look like he's trying to balance, but because there are no pegs for his feet, you can't really get any kind of interesting positions out of his feet, because he's just going to fall off the board. So, you know, if you want to make him kind of like going, whoa, I don't know, but I think you kind of get what I mean, is that you can't really put him in many positions to make him look like he's he's trying to balance without having his feet solidly on the floor. And that's another thing. There's no fin on the bottom of this. So unlike, because this is a surfboard, so it's gonna have it should have the a fin on the bottom. And obviously these aren't angled at all, they're just completely flat. Even if they do rotate, they're just completely flat. So, you know, if you want to make it look like he's riding on a wave or anything, and you make a base that kind of is a little bit angled, or you know, you want it to look like he's boosting or anything, you can't actually put him on there because there's no pegs for him to hold on to. So if you hold it up like that, he's never going to be able to stand on that. So for me, that's kind of an issue, because I like to do animation and I also like to set up little dioramas and such. So it's kind of disappointing that there's no life to it, really. It is just this flat, boring thing. And even if you know, do that, it doesn't look anything like the game. But there's no way he'll ever balance on that, because it's at an angle and it's completely slippery, so he just slides away. See, he's just going to fall off. So that's a great shame. The Jetboard's a great letdown. If only they'd angled these stabilizers a little bit, then maybe given it a fin, they could have given it a bit more life. I saw some YouTubers going, "Oh, it would have been great to have an invisible, see-through stand so that it looked like he was hovering." Obviously, they've never played the game because it's not a hoverboard. But it would have been nice to have some sort of, you know, three-dimensional aspect so that it does look like he could be gliding on the water, you know? So for scale and for functionality, I much prefer the ReSaurus Jetboard. Now, of all the accessories and the boxes and the nostalgia and the years of collecting ReSaurus figures, I would be lying if I said that the NECA figure wasn't the better figure. Because, well, you can't really argue with the sculpt of this figure. It looks pretty much exactly as he is in the game. The fur detail, it has such great texture. Obviously, the posability is incredible, even down to the fact that you can actually pose his eyebrows. So they've got you there. He's got a stomach articulation, you know, just here. So you can kind of crunch. His head moves in all kinds of directions. Up, down, left, right. You know, you can make him look kind of fully up at something, or you can make him look down at something. His legs are posable. He has knee joints, ankle joints. He has wrist joints, elbow joints. You know, he's so posable. Compared to the ReSaurus figures, 6 points of articulation, that would be his legs move at the thigh on that axis. His arms go up and down. They don't have a ball joint. And, of course, his hands swivel. That's all the ReSaurus figure can do. And you can see that they were trying to, you know, give homage to the ReSaurus figures for the Jetboard Crash, because they've got pretty much the same expression. But even down to the face, you can see that the NECA one is the much better sculpt. It looks much more like how Crash is meant to look in-game. And, well, the ReSaurus figure does a really good job of capturing Crash, because you've got to remember, this was made for the PlayStation 1 game, where the graphics weren't as advanced as they are now. Of course, there are a lot of production paintings and drawings and such that showed how Crash looked, and I think the ReSaurus figure captured it really well. The one thing that the NECA one doesn't capture, and I think even the Insane Trilogy doesn't capture, is that Crash always had kind of a solid jaw, but it seems to be really rounded out in the Insane, but the ReSaurus one captures it nicely. Again, the colour of the figures, so Crash is obviously orange. I mean, in any of the production paintings and, you know, and cover art, Crash is always this orange colour. In-game, I can kind of see how he looks kind of red. He does look a bit red in-game because of the, you know, the shading and whatnot. But yeah, he is orange. So I can see why ReSaurus made their Crash figure a kind of red colour, because that is kind of how Crash looks in the game. But yeah, they did go a bit too dark. He should have been much more orange. Obviously, the NECA Crash can look a little bit funky because he has all this different kind of shading that isn't really well blended. So it kind of looks like he's got suntan marks and sunburn. But obviously, in the original game and in the Insane Trilogy, there's this kind of shading where Crash has this light patch on his back, and ReSaurus interpreted that as these kind of spots, which were actually in some of the concept art for Crash, and NECA interpreted that as simply lighting, so they just made theirs lighter. So painting, sculpt, articulation, obviously I can't deny go to NECA for their incredibly detailed, incredibly screen accurate, incredibly articulated Crash Bandicoot figure. You could even argue that ReSaurus didn't get all of the colours right on this figure, because he has black shoes and black gloves and ridiculously dark trousers that Crash doesn't have in the game. If you have the flat-footed version, which I do, then obviously he doesn't stand with this stance. He stands more flat-footed like this NECA Crash does, which makes him a lot easier to stand up. But obviously you can do a lot more with this NECA figure because of how poseable he is. The paint jobs on both the figure lines have their issues. So the ReSaurus figures are kind of notorious for their paint chipping. They're also notorious for having quality control paintbrush strokes over them. And, you know, the NECA figures, this is, you know, we're in 2019 now by the time this video is released, probably. And there's a lot of paint issues and lack of quality control. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to pick it up on camera, but my Crashes both came with a lot of scuffs and damage to their eyes. You can see here and here. There's just paint loss. In real life, it looks like loads of grey or black dots on his eyes, which is a shame. And you can see on the Jetboard figure in the corner of his eye there is also a scratch. So as you can see, the figures differ in height. So I'd kind of hoped that I could put the NECA Crash with my ReSaurus figures and he'd be the same size, so that I'd have this superposable Crash that I could put with my Cortex and Engine figures, because obviously NECA didn't release any other characters. So I was hoping that I would be able to use him in my animations with the other figures, but it's not going to be that easy considering how tall he is. I just thought of something. Imagine how big the tiny figure is going to be. So this is the size of the ReSaurus tiny figure compared to the ReSaurus Crash. So you can kind of see how much bigger this tiny figure is. Like, he's the biggest figure of the series, but this figure is actually quite a bit bigger than this Crash figure. So can you imagine how big the tiny figure would have to be of the right scale for this NECA figure? So in conclusion then, from a figure collector, you know, who did kind of expect more from these figures, just because he had been used to the ReSaurus figures and all of their accessories, these NECA figures are really great, and in fact all the figures are great for their different merits. You have to remember that the ReSaurus figure was made 20 years ago, technology was different then, but the NECA figures, yeah, they're amazing figures, really hyperposable. If you're a collector and you want the rare things, then obviously go for the ReSaurus figures. If you're a collector who wants more characters and wants to have the whole cast, then obviously go for the ReSaurus figures. But if you're a collector that really loves figures, really just loves Crash, and you want to see Crash in all kind of different poses, then yeah, the NECA figures are great for you. They're hyper detailed, and they're a much cheaper option and a much easier option than the ReSaurus figures. So my hope is, because I do love these NECA figures so much, because they are so detailed and they are so gorgeous, I really, really hope that NECA start bringing out the other characters. I want to see, mainly Engine, I'll be honest, but I want to see Engine, Cortex, Coco, Dingodile, Entropy, Tiny, Komodo Mo, Ripperoo, Brio. I want to see everyone, you know. I want to see the whole cast. That would be amazing. So yeah, go out and get yourself one of these NECA figures, and hopefully your money will be well spent, because it will go towards them developing more of the other characters. So thanks for watching this review. I hope you enjoyed. I hope it made sense, and I hope it was informative, and I hope you can kind of see the differences between the figures.